This is a special episode of Scroll Ideas that was recorded in the bookshop in Delhi with a live audience.
As I think most of us are aware, Hindutva is an extremely popular, dominant, and I guess in parts of India, uh, hegemonic, close to hegemonic ideology. And I think for how powerful and how popular it is, there isn't actually a lot of writing and a lot of study of it. Of course, there is a lot of studies and writing on the RSS and the larger Sangh Parivar. But I think honestly, Hindutva now is bigger than that. It's more mass than that, whether we like it or not. It's more popular than that. And there isn't really a lot of study of how it's working, how it's actually working on the ground. Right? We all know it's big, and we all know it's very popular, and we all know it's very dominant, and so on. But how did it happen? And that's where actually Kunal Purohit comes in this fantastic book called HCOP, The Secretive World of Hindutva Pop Stars, where he looks at the popular culture of Hindutva. He looks at a poet, he looks at a singer, and he looks at a person who runs an e-commerce platform, believe it or not. And he sort of tracks how these people are powering this ideology throughout India, making it reach corners that are not being reached, right? Very far from places like the bookshop. And so this is a collaboration between Scroll and the bookshop, where we're going to be discussing Kunal's fantastic new book for around an hour, and we'll have a short Q&A in the end. Welcome, Kunal. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you so much. Thank you to Shoaib. Thank you to Scroll. Thank you to you guys at the bookshop. And thank you to everyone who's turned up. I mean, it's very rare for someone from Mumbai to come here and feel excited. But you've made that happen. So thank you so much for making that happen.
Right. Now that we got the Delhi bashing,
I had to. Got a lot of messages from people in Mumbai saying, take one for the team.
No. As a person from Calcutta, I'm on board with this. But so let's, I want you to explain, Kunal, how you got into this book. Like, what prompted you to jump into this topic?
So I've written about this in the book as well. I mean, since 2018 or so is when I started tracking hate crimes, and sort of religion-driven hate crimes, crimes of lynching, communal riots, tensions, all of that. And every trip that I would make to places where those hate crimes had happened would leave me questions about just what was driving it. One of the trips that happened, which really sort of gave birth to the book in some ways, was this trip in a small town called Gumla in Jharkhand. And I went to that place to sort of understand why the hate crime happened and how that could have happened. It was a Ram Navami day. It was the day when Ram Navami was being celebrated. And then, unlike what we see in bigger cities, Ram Navami processions in these places are massive. And so, tens of thousands of people on the streets. The processions will go across town. They sort of snake through different parts. On that particular day, as always, the tradition in Gumla was that the Muslims would come out. They would be outside the Jama Masjid of Gumla, and they would wait for the procession to come there and sort of offer refreshments. There'd be flowers. They'd be welcomed very, very happily, and then the procession would go on and carry forth. And that day, when they were waiting there, the procession did come as always. But when it entered the lane, people told me that it had a very different energy to it. Right, the crowd was much more aggressive. There was also a lot of nervous energy about what they wanted to do. And people started questioning why that was the case. And they didn't have the imagination that something like this could happen, because after all, it was a syncretic tradition of the procession coming there, being welcomed, going ahead, and so on. That particular day, one of the things that had changed, and possibly the only thing that had changed, was that the procession, instead of playing devotional Hindu songs, was playing a song whose words translate very loosely into Mulle ki topi gira do. Right? And suddenly the Muslims who were standing outside the mosque started wondering what this was all about. a lot of them felt threatened because here was a crowd of tens of thousands of people. If this is the energy that they were carrying, God knows what could have happened in the moment. And so in that moment, the police intervened very quickly, ensured that the procession turned off the music, they went ahead. The welcoming didn't really happen because Muslims, again, and a lot of local Hindus as well, were very scared of what could happen. The story doesn't end there, right? So that is the tension that happens, and then the procession goes ahead. That night, some people who were in the procession were going back home, and about 3 or 4 kilometers away from the spot where the masjid is, they encounter this young Muslim man who is talking to a Hindu girl of a local village. They see him, they recognize him, they say, "Oh, this is that guy. He's Mohammed Shalik from Gumla." Right? They've gone to his shop numerous times. They know his family. They know they're all acquaintances, and yet they decide to tie him up to an electric pole on the street and lynch him, only and only because he was with a Hindu girl, and that catered to the idea of love jihad. So that essentially was the night that this book was in some ways born, because I went back and the question that I had is, what was that song all about? What are these songs all about? Who are the artists who are doing this, and who are the people who are listening to this? And that sort of set me off on a journey where I wanted to understand the popular culture side of Hindutva. Right? We all listen to the speeches, we all see the rallies, but I don't think we see enough of this. I don't think we capture enough of what pop culture is doing, and that essentially is why I wrote the book.
You profile 3 people. Could you? So I mean, the way the book is structured, it's a sort of deep dive into the works of 3 people. Could you give us a short intro to those who haven't read the book and are going to soon?
So hopefully they're going to soon. The book is really looking essentially at 3 different characters, right? One of them, as I said, is a pop star who does Hindutva music. She is this 25-year-old girl woman from Haryana. She started doing this only a few years ago. 2019 is when her first song came out. She will have a song. Her name is Kavi Singh. She will have a song for every occasion there is in the Hindu right-wing ecosystem. You think of Article 370, she has a song. You think of a Hindu girl being murdered by a Muslim, she'll have a song. You think of fears of Muslims having a demographic coup against the Hindus and replacing them, she'll have a song. She has a song now for the Rajasthan elections as well, and so on. So she has a song for every notable occasion that the Hindu right wing would want to look at. So that is her. She does these concerts as well, especially more so before COVID. I mean, she's slowed down a bit now, but before COVID, she would go across. She would do these events. She would have these concerts. Enjoys immense popularity, by the way. I remember I was with her just before the second wave of COVID hit, and we were in Haridwar just days before the Kumbh Mela. And I was talking to her, and I was just sort of talking to her about, and this is on the banks of the river of the Ganga. And this man comes up to her and sort of he says, "You're Kavi Singh, right?" So she says, "Yes." He says, "I'm this guy from Maharashtra. I mean, I was just I was here to do pilgrimage in this place, and I saw you and I recognize you, and I am an immense sort of fan of your work and what you bring." So she says that's okay, because that is common. What he says next, Shoaib, is what sort of jolted me. He says, "Can I wash your feet?" Now, I don't think anyone in the room would think of that for an Arijit Singh or a Sunidhi or whoever else we like or follow. But that is the kind of credibility and the popularity that she.
In fact, when you said that she has a song about everything, there's a line in your book where I think her father says we think of herself as journalists.
Yeah.
And it really struck me because every time a current affairs event happens, I mean, I would rush to write an article, and she rushes to the studio to record a song. Basically, that's what's happening. Right?
So they essentially realize the economy of the Hindu right-wing ecosystem, which is that now people are no longer looking at the news to analyze an event that happens. Right? An announcement is made. People don't want to care what Shoaib or Kunal or anyone else in the room sort of writes about. They would much rather go to YouTube and they would search for things about that. And on the algorithm is where they want to be, where people like Avi and her father want to be. Where if you search for Article 370 Modi announcement, the first thing that should appear is possibly the song, especially in the target audience that she has. So what she did when the Article 370 was abrogated is that they were shooting somewhere, and then sort of midway through it said, "No, no, no, let's pack up now. We have to go back. Kal gana nikalna hai." And this was, if you remember, this was first in the Rajya Sabha,
Right.
when Amit Shah made the announcement.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as they heard that there was something like this, they abandoned the shoot, go back home in the same night, write a song, record a song. By the next morning, when Amit Shah has possibly woken up and is going to Lok Sabha, is when the song is already out. Right? So this is the economy that they understand and that they also cater to. That's one character. Going back to your original question. The other character is a fascinating poet from Lucknow, from this place outside of Lucknow called Kamal Agne. He only writes Hindutva poetry, right? So his job essentially is to channelize, Hindutva sentiments into poetry, and try and look at every topical thing that happens, and sort of create poetry about that topic. It can be anything, right? It can be say Gaza, what is happening in Gaza. I remember he wrote a poem about the US withdrawal from Afghanistan in Hindutva terms. So the idea is to repurpose and refashion any event that's possibly happening and fit it into the Hindutva context.
I mean, I can see how powerful that will be for an ideology that
it is.
They have a soldier like that who would contextualize everything through Hindutva, right?
Absolutely, because the idea is to add to the Hindutva narrative no matter what happens. That's him, and then one big part of his work, as well as the third character, who's Sandeep Dev, is to relook at history, right? I mean, we're looking at the history section right here, in fact. And I don't know why Rahul Gandhi is in the history section, but it's history and politics, so I think they know what they're doing. But his job, Kamal's job, and Sandeep's job is essentially to look at historical events that have happened, try and fit it into the Hindutva context.
So Sandeep, just to give context, is a publisher and runs an e-commerce platform.
He's many things. He's a journalist. He's an author of some 5-6 best-selling books by Bloomsbury, no less.
Right.
He runs his own Hindu e-commerce website. He started his sort of own platform where he not just produces but also distributes Hindutva books. So he's doing a lot of things, and now he's in the political ring as well. And I don't want to give out spoilers, but he's now planning to fight and contest elections to further the cause of Hindutva, if I can say that.
Right.
That's essentially 3 people.
So I mean, for Kavi Singh, her breakout moment, so to speak, I think was Pulwama. And I remember actually going, I was in Delhi when Pulwama happened, then I was in Calcutta. And I remember seeing the fervor that was there in Calcutta, in a place that, for whatever, is not seen to be a hotbed of Hindutva per se, but there was a lot of fervor. And one thing that struck me was that her song went viral at that time.
Yeah.
So what is the effect? I want you to broaden this and tell us about the effect that these people are having on spreading, strengthening Hindu nationalism in India.
I think it's interesting to see the context in which their work is located. Right? When I started off the book, much of this was happening in smaller towns and villages, where they would often go and perform themselves, where there'd be events where thousands of people would turn up and listen to them. And in those events is when they make these very simplistic explanations for everything, right? If you are worried about unemployment, it's possibly because the number of Muslims has increased,
Right.
and then they are taking over your share of everything that the government owes to you. So every single event will have an explanation attached to it in the form of a song or a poetry, right? That in the case of these 2 characters as well. And then what essentially that does is they sort of portray themselves to be independent creators and artists. They don't say, and they're not affiliated officially to the BJP at all. So they go to the crowds and say, listen, I am a Deshbhakt. मैं एक देशभक्त कवि हूँ, मैं एक देशभक्त singer हूँ. I'm doing this for the country. I'm not doing this for myself. I don't gain a Rajya Sabha seat out of it. Right? So they carry that enhanced credibility, and this is the reason why that guy walks up to Kavi and wants to wash her feet, because she for him is someone who's doing the God's work in so many ways, right? She's doing the work of dharma. So essentially, it is transcending the boundaries of a political activist. It's becoming this independent artist who's telling you something very important for your country, for your religion, and for the people around you. And I think somewhere a lot of people do sort of buy into it, right? A lot of people see the sense in it because they think, here is this person who's got millions of followers, by the way, on YouTube and Facebook and stuff. And if she is essentially telling me that this is the way things are, right? If she's telling me that my Hindu girls and my Hindu sisters are all in danger, then it must be the case. Then she knows what she's saying. So there is that added enhanced credibility that they carry, but there's also the format itself, because again, I mean, with poetry and music and things, you are essentially just enjoying it. You're not there to critically analyze what you're receiving. If you're not reading a book, or you're not reading a newspaper article, you're there to be entertained. And then when you're there to be entertained, if there is a message that is going on, you're casually looking at it, you're absorbing the message, and you're saying, okay, fair enough. But then you keep listening to the song. Like when I travel across these places, people are listening to the song when they're in the car, sometimes in the public buses, these songs play. Their ringtones. Incidentally, the time I discovered about Hindutva pop, the driver who was taking me in Jharkhand from one place to another was this Bajrang Dal worker whose caller tune was a song called Har Ghar Bhagwa Chayega. So every morning I would essentially wake up and call him and listen to the song, and then that's how my day would begin. But so that is what the song is doing. It's an everyday repetition of these biases and of the prejudice that they carry. And I feel like that is extremely potent, because that just keeps reminding you over and over again of what is happening.
I think we've got to go back a long time back, but I think if you go back 50 years, the left recognized, I think, this propaganda value of popular culture. But I don't think any of the ideology in India really has this sort of popular reach, does it?
I don't think it has the scale. I mean, there are countercultures, if that's what you're saying. There are countercultures. You see that in different communities, you see that in different regions. But I think nothing matches the scale at which this is being produced. Nothing matches the state-backed resources that sometimes they get. And that is why it's very difficult to then sort of counter it effectively.
And how much of this case? So I mean, clearly a lot of it has got to do with social media, and I think social media provides the sort of architecture for this scale. Like, tell us what you saw of how they are using social media. Some of what I got from your book is that some of these people really understand social media rather well.
Absolutely. Essentially, the reason why I even chose these three as against so many others is because they are not just social media. I mean, they don't have a social media presence alone, but they're going into the world, doing things, doing offline events, and so on. Having said that, I think the social media component becomes very, very important for multiple reasons. One is that enhanced reach on social media for them means more work, right? So in case of poetry organizers, so people who do Kavi Sammelans and so on, they often see the reach or the number of subscribers that these guys have. So when a Kamal Agne is getting more subscribers online, more organizers are going to him saying, okay, he's my guy. I want him to be there. And then when he does those events offline, is when he also gets more people to come to add to his follower base. So it's really the online and the offline feeding into each other in so many ways. The other thing that social media does, Shoaib, and I think we don't critically look at this enough, is that social media is not just a platform where they put out work, but social media is literally allowing them to fund the creation of this work, right? All of these platforms are monetized by these pop stars. So essentially, they're getting sometimes thousands of dollars a month from a YouTube to put out this kind of popular content
through subscription,
through followers, and then add revenue. Right? So essentially, these guys, YouTube is saying, here's my money, do what you want to, make more of this content, and I'll pay you some more. So all of these platforms are essentially, continuously monetizing, continuously incentivizing and supporting and facilitating this kind of popular content.
And I think sometimes when I look at popular, it's not only Hindutva, but since we're on Hindutva, the views of some of the videos they run
Yeah.
into the millions. I mean,
Yeah.
that's tens of lakhs of people. So it's quite remarkable the scale that this thing has. Uh, this is something you touch upon. How much of this is, I think some people have called it the geo effect. I mean, everybody has a smartphone. I mean, data is like it's really really cheap. Do you think this was some sort of an inflection point for the scale at which Hindutva pop culture, like for example, could a Kavi sing, who's a singer here, could she, because her song went viral on WhatsApp, right?
Right.
Could she have existed in a pre-geo environment?
She would have existed,
Right.
but it would have been difficult for her to match the levels of popularity that she enjoys now.
Right.
Essentially, these guys, as I said, they're also going offline, and that is sometimes the more potent part, because they're going to places where there is no other. On YouTube, you can switch the song.
Right.
You can go to another song. They're going essentially to places where there are no other countercultures that exist. Popular culture doesn't exist in the shape and form that you and I know of. When they're going to these smaller villages and towns, they are the biggest celebrities that town has seen. So they would have still existed and done all of this.
But an event, if a Kavi Singh comes to
It
a
is
small
massive.
town, right?
It is massive.
Right.
I've traveled a lot with Kamal, especially,
Mm.
and I've gone and seen how his popularity is in all of these places. Halls suddenly fill up. People start chanting "Bharat Mata Ki Jai," "Vande Mataram" while he's still performing. So that is the effect and sort of the power that his poetry and his work
And
sometimes
that's
has.
doubly, like, I think relevant considering poetry is seen as a bit moribund, but
Yeah.
not in this case,
Not in this
for
case,
sure. Right. You also sort of, so we're looking at the social media environment that Hindutva pop culture, or the present environment that it works in. You also, you have a little acted through, I think, Gita Press, which is Akshay Mukul's fantastic book. And to me, it seemed like, in a way, he was cataloging the Hindutva pop culture of that time. And the pop culture was print culture. How do you see, what has changed in 100 years in Hindutva pop culture? Like has the ideology gained more confidence? What are the changes that you think that you've seen from between Akshay's book to your book?
I think essentially, Shoaib, one of the things that has changed and the way I look at it, Gita Press wanted to broad base itself.
Right.
It definitely wanted to cater to sort of the core Hindu values that it was espousing and it was propagating, but it was also very cognizant that there were other things that they wanted to do. So the audience was not as limited as some of these creators have, which is the core Hindutva audience who only and only want some of the most rabid tenets of Hindutva repeated again and again. And that is for me a major difference, because with Gita Press you saw that the desire to broad base itself meant that they would do other things. They would sometimes soften their line.
Right.
They would want to publish things which were much more religious and not just very very polemical.
Right.
But these guys don't have that constraint, and they don't care about broad basing themselves. They know that this is essentially what is selling right now. Hindutva is the flavor of the season, and hence they're focused very very firmly on constantly pushing the Hindutva line further, constantly stoking all of these sentiments that we talk about.
And so, is there never any time when these people are worried that they are touching on a red line, that there might be anger, maybe even legal action against them? That's not a worry that is there in the head at all.
I mean, do they have red lines? Is the question. I think we must ask. But one interesting thing about this new India is that none of them have ever faced any of the FIRs that we would associate with newsrooms,
Right.
with stand-up comics,
Right.
with artists, so on and so forth. Right? Neither of the three characters have faced an FIR for hurting religious sentiments, and that tells you a lot.
Super interesting.
Right? So that tells you a lot about how well they are aware of the world that they're operating in. The other broader issue that I do want to touch upon here is, I think somewhere what is also happening is that I don't think these guys are reaching audiences like the one that is sitting here. Right? Most of us possibly don't know of the existence of these artists. The audiences that it reaches are very unlikely to be the audiences that will object to the kind of rhetoric that they use and then go on to prosecute them or file cases against them. the audience that it's reaching is an audience that is relishing and lapping much of this up. So I don't think they are worried about any of them actually ever wanting to go to a police station and say, oh, I want to prosecute her for doing this. That's never really it's never really a calculation that they make while they publish, while they write, while they sing. Never at all.
And like, who is like? Could you, for example, could you explain, like, could you describe to us who's like your median Kavi Singh fan? Is it like a young 17-year-old boy? Like, what is it? Is it like a, is it a dadi somewhere? Like, what? Who's consuming this music?
It's
like,
interesting. I mean, so it's very difficult to get a very broad sense of the audience space. But her audiences, especially in the concerts that I've seen, and then some of it is slowed down now because of COVID. But her audiences would be a lot of young people, a lot of young men, as well as young women, right? Who see in her something that they possibly are not able to live, which is this woman who's taken up a profession, taken up a space where you don't really see too many men. I mean, one of the things that attracted me towards the subject of Kavi Singh was that the Hindutva space is very, very masculine. Right? It very rarely has women who are in leadership positions, women who are setting the agenda, not just following the agenda. And Kavi Singh is one of them. In fact, there are only, to my knowledge, there are two popular Hindutva pop singers, Kavi Singh and another woman called Lakshmi Dubey. And Lakshmi's songs, I mean, the song that I told you was the caller tune, Har Ghar Bhagwa Chayega, is a bit of an anthem in all of these places, right? It's played in weddings, it's played in social occasions, and so on. But her work was very limited. I mean, she, as I said, Kavi will have a song for every occasion that there is, whereas Lakshmi, I think, somewhere fell behind on that front. So these guys are extremely popular, and which is why their popularity due to the work that Kavi does, the different kind of songs. So a Love Jihad song, for instance, where she's appealing to the parents, saying take care of your girls and don't let them go towards Muslim men and so on and so forth, will appeal to a different audience, right? When she's way more direct about say Muslims in India and vis-a-vis terrorism and things like that, she's appealing to a younger male audience more so. So I think she's very, very clever in how she also pitches a lot of her songs, because then she'll also do some more benign sounding, at least ostensibly benign sounding songs about history of India, about India being a superpower soon and so on and so forth. So she understands that she needs to broad base even while she keeps the core agenda intact. And then that is somewhere also the strength that she has.
And I don't think that would be very odd for Hindutva supporter, because I'm sure Hindutva supporter also would have other interests.
Absolutely. I mean, you also want to learn about India's glorious history and how we're all becoming a Vishwa Guru. So I mean, I think her core audience is very happy when they hear Kavi saying, "Oh, India ban raha hai Vishwa Guru."
Right. So I mean, the woman one that you said, it reminded me of, I can't remember the name of the documentary, but Nisha Bahuja.
Oh yeah, very good.
The World Before Her.
Yeah.
The World Before Her.
Yeah.
So I think it's around a decade old. But it blew me away because there was a narrative of, if I could call it, feminism through the Durga Vahini, and I never thought about it, but I mean, why not? So I mean, you could have it. It's kind of, the world is complex. I think she has a new documentary out now.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, so it struck me over there. One thing that so all the three people you've profiled, Kavi, Agne, and Sandeep Deo, they all.
Sandeep, by the way, follows Shoaib on Twitter. You should know that you guys are Twitter friends.
I discovered this while researching. So Sandeep, so you should tell him.
I will convey
Please
your
pass on
regards.
the message. So actually, I mean, on a complete tangent, as I was telling Kunal a bit earlier, I actually found Sandeep to be the most interesting. So the affection is mutual.
Are you sure it's a very objective question, or is this based on your friendship?
So yeah, because he's, I mean, I wouldn't agree with him on many things, or on a lot of things, but he seems to be quite a driven individual, if nothing else.
I mean, that's one of the things that sort of blows my mind sometimes is how ideologically committed and driven these people are, right? And on all of them, all three of them, and so many others that I've met. day in and day out, they are sticking to the ideology, not refusing.
In fact, I found it remarkable that Sandeep ended his contract with Bloomsbury.
Yeah.
On a point of principle.
On a point of principle. So his thing was Bloomsbury had published various books of his in Hindi, and he claims that they were all bestsellers, and he was getting lakhs of rupees of royalty. I'm hoping that I get similar royalty. But if you guys remember, there was a book, very controversial book on the Delhi riots, which again Bloomsbury was bringing out, and then there was hue and cry over the book, and sort of finally Bloomsbury was forced to pulp the book before it could get published. Sandeep saw that as an insult to himself as well, right? He said, Hindutva ki kitabe, how can they do this to a book which is presenting the facts of the Delhi riots? How can they give in to this secular brigade? And if they give in to the secular brigade today, what is the guarantee that they won't do the same with me? And so on that point of principle, he said, screw this. I'm going to take my books away from Bloomsbury. I don't care about the lakhs of rupees that I get. I'm going to do my own thing. And that is how he starts his own publishing house, right? So you can sort of call him delusional or whatever, but he's someone who's very driven and he wants to do this. The other interesting thing about his commitment.
Then he leaves Amazon and starts his own e-commerce website.
So, I mean, anyone who knows about publishing will tell you how important Amazon now is for your books to be published and for you to be able to sell them. And he says, nothing doing. Amazon is anti-Hindu. In the US, they had sold toilet seats with Hindu gods and goddesses on the cover. Right? So, why should I care about them? If they are anti-Hindu, I don't want to be doing business with them. So, I'm going to leave Amazon and do my own thing. Create my own e-commerce website and then publish my books. And he publishes and he sells about 25,000 odd copies every year now. Right? So I think it tells you a lot about that sense of commitment that they harbor towards the cause and the willingness to punch a hole in the sky. They may or may not be able to finally make a lot out of it, but they're trying. They sometimes succeed, sometimes they don't.
So to continue with the fascinating, Sandeep has also so he was also the member of the BJP, and then he left the BJP.
Yeah.
So one of the things I want to broaden out from this point is explain to us how these people are connected to the BJP. I mean, from what I can understand, it's a complex connection. So could you what are they? Are they directly working with the BJP? Are they sometimes opposed to the BJP?
So it's funny how sometimes in liberal secular circles, anything Hindutva is BJP, right? So you sort of automatically assume that, this is all the BJP, this is all the RSS. A lot of them, including someone like your friend, he doesn't care about the BJP per se. A lot of them believe that this is not much to do with political power. We are fighting a cultural war. We are here because we want to do this for the long term. BJP aayegi jayegi. If the BJP comes, well and good. If it doesn't, we'll have our own path anyway. But the fight is not going anywhere. This war that they are waging is not going to sort of suddenly end if the BJP doesn't come back to power in 2024. And that explains to you what they're also trying to do. I mean, they're saying that we will be happy to take the BJP support if it comes our way, but we're also happy to chart out our independent courses where we can do this on a sustainable basis, where we have enough money coming in, and where we have enough of an audience base, which they do, because their audience base is not always just a BJP audience base. They sort of they almost always coin themselves to be cultural warriors who are fighting a battle on the far right. So sometimes, I mean, it's a funny thing that they tell me. They look at Narendra Modi and they say, Modi ji क्यों कहते हैं सबका साथ सबका विकास? हमारा साथ काफी नहीं है क्या? सबका क्यों चाहिए उनको? So they're upset that the government talks of this rhetoric of inclusiveness, of secularism, of taking everyone along. They say, why do you have to do this? And which is why, I mean, they do benefit from the BJP, to answer your original point. The BJP does help them sometimes. The BJP does.
How does the BJP help? What does it do?
So often the BJP, through its network of people, and again there is very little evidence that you can sort of put on the table and say this is wrong or right. But often what happens is in some of the election campaigns of the BJP, especially at the level of the local MLAs, MPs, etc. A lot of these artists go and perform, right? And Kamal, for instance, has performed in various constituencies where BJP candidates are performing, and he says, I'm not performing for the BJP, मैं वो candidate के लिए perform कर रहा हूँ, right? And even when they go there, the candidate very cleverly divides the constituency into areas. So there will be some areas which are more Hindu Muslim. He shouldn't be really saying the language of Hindutva too much. So he'll go soft. Kamal tells me. But there'll be other areas where you want polarization. So he says, "Wahan jaake I will talk Hindutva." So it's very carefully also sort of toned up or down depending on what they need. So there are all of these sort of invisible networks that sometimes drive some of these characters and also drive traffic in terms of the online space, money and clout. I mean, sure, clout is a massive thing because being able to meet BJP leaders, being seen on the same platform. For instance, Kamal was invited to perform at one of the more controversial BJP MPs. I mean, I won't be able to name her. And he went there, and his photos with her were all over because he thought this was the moment that he had arrived. That if they're ready to host me, my audience base is saying, "Oh, Kamal's gone there. Kamal's arrived now." So that does help.
In fact, this complexity that you sort of described, one of the interesting sort of bits that struck out for me was Kavi's father was Rajiv Gandhi.
Oh, yeah, yes. He was an absolute Rajiv Gandhi. I think fan might be an understatement because he said he cried for 3 days when Rajiv Gandhi was assassinated. He was about 5 or 6 years old. He didn't know much about him, but he says, "मैंने उनको एक बार TV पे देखा था, and I saw this very smart-looking guy, fair guy, लंबा चिट्टा, he's strutting around and stuff. So I became a fan."
Right.
And then shortly after, I heard that he was assassinated. So I cried for 3-4 days. Then I started considering Rahul and Priyanka as my kids. So मेरे मन में था कि ये मेरे बच्चे हैं. They're so sweet, they're so nice.
Right.
He was a dedicated Congress supporter till 2014. He tells me how he heard Narendra Modi's speeches about the Congress family.
Right.
And he just suddenly, मेरा bulb चालू हो गया. He said, "Yeah, he's right. Congress has always been a Muslim party. Why was I not able to see this?" And he said, they've treated Hindus always very badly. And that for him was the turning point. So that is when he sort of turns direction and then starts backing the BJP to the hilt. So they all come from very interesting journeys. And I
Do you like so? Do you suspect this is a utilitarian turn because Hindutva is so popular, or he genuinely had a change of heart?
I mean, he's genuinely had a change of heart since 2014. But I think the lines between opportunism and ideology sometimes are very blurred.
Right.
You don't know when one goes into the other and comes back. But I mean, it's fair to say that they are in it for the ideology for the most part. And when they see the benefits of it, they say, "Why not?"
Yeah. This is actually not a part of your book, but something that I wanted to touch on, exclusive for everybody at the book. Is all the 3 people you profiled sing, write, and work in Hindi, and I think native Hindi speakers. And there's something that even I've noticed in my reporting that a lot of the, or I think all of the Hindutva popular music, I haven't come across a lot of poetry, is in Hindi. So is this just a matter of reach? Is Hindi some sort of vehicle, the best vehicle for Hindu nationalism? Because in some cases, you've actually said that one of the causes is the promotion of Hindi. So could you explain how this language domain works?
I mean, in my study over the last 4 years or so, I've mostly seen this content in Hindi. Right. Most of this is in Hindi. It's very rarely in different regional languages. In fact, some of the people that I met who follow this music, for instance, Kavi's music, they are from states where there are dominant regional languages. They're not from Hindi-speaking states, but they prefer listening to her. And then what has happened is Hindi Hindutva pop has this sort of first movers advantage, if you can call it that, where because they've established themselves so well, the production value of a lot of this content is very, very high. So you're looking at videos which are shot very well. You're looking at very colorful looking scenes from different villages and so on and so forth. In Kamal's case, you're looking at very jazzy reels that he will make of his own poems. So they've got that advantage where they've been in this space, they've capitalized on it, and they're growing even in the way they do the sort of the distribution of the content. Regional languages, I haven't really seen. If they do exist, I don't think they've reached the scale that Hindi has managed to. The other thing is, and that is the larger question here, is that if Hindi is so successful, how long before regional influencers see this and say, wait a minute, why can't this be in Marathi, right? Or why can't this be in Odia, for instance, or Bengali? So I think one of the things that we must ponder over is just how that transition is also going to happen. I think it's a matter of time. I don't think it's a matter of if. I think it's a matter of when.
So you mentioned so Kamal is on Insta also.
They're all everywhere.
They're all everywhere. What is the main medium for them? YouTube,
because it's where the money is quite lucrative. But they're always on Instagram, on Twitter, Facebook, all of them.
Right. Yeah, somebody certainly on Twitter. Yeah, just to I think it's to a close. Is one thing that I was very interested in as a journalist myself is how was it reporting on these chaps? How was their reaction? How were they looking at Kunal nosing through their stuff? Were they hostile? Were they happy that they were getting some limelight? How was it like?
So one of the first things that happen when you do go and meet them is they check out your social media, right?
Right.
So this was the old Twitter in New India, but the old Twitter used to have a verified badge next to my name.
Right.
So apart from the apprehension that they would have around me, they would introduce me as the guy who has a verified Twitter profile. They're like, Kunal bhaiya, inka verified Twitter. So others would be like, oh, okay, he's someone. We don't know who he is, but he's someone. Having said that, they obviously knew that where my politics stood. I mean, they knew that I was not a sympathizer of the cause at all. So I think initially the question was why. They were very curious to know why was I interested in covering coming all the way from Mumbai, going into these villages with them, understanding how they work, spending days in afternoons not doing anything, just looking at them doing their usual stuff.
Right.
I told them, and this is really the sort of sincere, and then my editors here, and hopefully she will testify to this, but this was really the sincere desire that I had is not to sit here and sort of judge them or call them names and say they were communal and so on and so forth. The idea was to honestly bring to light the world that exists, the world of Hindutva pop. I think there are a lot of us who are sitting and sort of fighting in our WhatsApp groups and exiting them because we're angry that someone said something, but we're refusing to see the larger sort of issue that there is. And one of the bigger things that's happening is the radicalization through popular culture like this. The trouble is that it remains in those echo chambers, and we remain in ours, right? So for us, rebellion is walking out of a family WhatsApp group, whereas they will write, produce songs, poetry, books, and so on and so forth. My sense was that I felt that this was a story that deserved to be told as impartially as possible and as dispassionately as possible, because I didn't want to be the guy who wanted to give you gyan about how to look at them, right? I wanted to write a book which told them about their work in their words, published their work, their lyrics, their poems, and told them what their worldview, told you what their worldview was, told you why they were doing what they were doing, and the implications of it all. And then leave you to judge whether you want to engage some more with it or not. And I think somewhere they saw the honesty in that. And I mean, I'm happy to report, except maybe your friend Sandeep, that some of the others have agreed, and they've said that I've sort of at least I've critiqued their work, but I've presented what they've said in a manner that is truthful.
What was Sandeep's feedback?
I will tell you that after the
Right. I think that's all we have, Kunal. That was a great conversation. We're going to wrap. We're completely out of time. I think you had a great event, Kunal. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.